So here I am with my trusty 4-minute timer, and let's look at part 2 of what can you do when things go wrong in a virtual presentation, a virtual sales pitch, a virtual meeting. Last time I covered some of the technical things that you can do to prepare yourself, but what can you actually do if things are going wrong in the meeting? Well, first thing is, if there's anything that's going wrong but the meeting still continues, don't pretend it's not happening. This is a big mistake. So, for example, many of us we might present, and people might start firing up roadworks outside or building works or something. And strangely, if as a presenter you're trying to ignore the fact that something is going wrong, it suddenly commands the audience's attention. They're suddenly really focused on it. Whereas as the presenter, if you say, "Oh gosh, sorry about that, it's really noisy outside, I hope that'll finish in a moment," you've given the audience permission to ignore it. The second thing is, technical things, of course, will go wrong. And again, the thing here to do is to not pretend that it's not happening. So, for example, let's say you're doing something like you're trying to screen share and you suddenly notice, oh, the button isn't where I thought it was going to be, or that file isn't where I thought it was going to be. It's very awkward for an audience to watch someone who's sort of fumbling around that and not admitting what's happening. It's much better as a presenter, as someone running a pitch, to say, I'm going to screen share now. Oh, sorry, actually, I thought I was going to press one button, but I can't find it. Just give me a second. I'll just click over here, and I'm just trying to find the screen that I wanted to share with you. Okay, there it is. Great. All right. So it's much better to talk through what's happening. Give the audience permission to relax around it. The other thing to do is, if you come across problems which you really can't solve, so let's say it's something, for example, like you're taking a question from an audience member and their sound suddenly fails. Let's say they start talking and suddenly their sound cuts off, they drop off the call or whatever. Obviously, there's nothing you can do to solve that problem, but what you need to be able to do is confidently move on to the next thing just by addressing the problem and moving on to whatever's coming next. So, for example, let's say I ask somebody, have you got a question, Jenny? And Jenny says, yes, I have. Oh, and suddenly Jenny's disappeared. Well, what I want to do is I don't want to spend ages trying to see if Jenny's going to get back on that call. It's much better for the audience to say, oh, it looked like Jenny's dropped out of the call, actually. So let's move on to point 2 on our agenda. And if Jenny joins us later, we can come back to her question. So in the back of your mind, you always want to be psychologically ready to move on. And then one last thing you can do is have, at least at the very end of your pitch or at the very end of your presentation, have at least one punchline prepared. I use the phrase punchline. I don't mean that you need to make a joke. I don't mean that you need to do some stand-up comedy. But what I mean is you need to have a point really clearly ready to give at the end of your session. So this might be a call to action, or this might be a final summing up of the main point that you want to make. So the kind of language where you might say, look, the thing I want to leave you with today is, or the main point I want to get across to you today is, ... and you fill that in. Now, if you've got at least one of those prepared, ready to go, then almost whatever happens otherwise in the meeting, whatever other disasters happen in the meeting, at the very least, you can always go to your punchline, even if it's 10 minutes earlier than you wanted to, even if it's not in exactly the way that you wanted to. So let's say all sorts of things go wrong, your slides fail, etc., etc. You can always say, all right, everybody, well, look, let's cut the meeting a little bit short because obviously we're having some technical problems. But look, the last point I want to leave you with is... ... And at least then, although it wasn't a perfect presentation, you're ready, you're psychologically prepared, ready to deal with any disasters. Good luck with that. Let me know how you get on.